All right, hello everyone. This is Laura Crandall, Director of Student Involvement and Leadership. We are going to get started in just a few minutes as we accept a couple more families and students into our Zoom today, but thank you for being here. And we have a lot of great people at ESF in our discussion. So if you have questions, please put it in the chat, or at the end we'll have time for more questions. Today is about academics, resources, and study skills with a host of people who do great work, two professional advisors. So again, we'll get started in just a few minutes. All right, as I shared, we will get started probably about 1 more minute. Today's session is specifically about academic and success and study skills with, I'll start naming the folks. So we have Amelia Hoffman, who is the Academic Success Coordinator, and we'll have Karen Patsky, who is our professor at ESF, as well as running the Writing Resource Center, and will speak on a lot of different services. And we have our two professional advisors, Erin Tichelli, who advises LA students, landscape architecture students, and environmental studies students. And last but not least, we have Monica Blaisdell, who is for the Division of Environmental Science. And joining us on our chat room is our Dean for Student Affairs, Dean Lombard. And if there's any questions outside of academics, we have 2 more sessions the next 2 weeks. Next week is about mental health and helping your students with our counseling services staff. And the last week on February 9th is about our programming plans for spring 2021. And we have a whole host of panelists for that one, from career services to study abroad to our Office of Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity, student involvement and leadership, and we even have some resources that are happening at SU listed in that program. So we have, again, 2 more sessions after today, and we will record them and continue to post them in places. So I want to thank you for being here, families. I know in Syracuse and Central New York and a lot of parts, there is a lot of fun snow. So a good day for this to be on our screens for an hour, and we'll keep it brief so that you can give your eyes a little break. So thank you again for being here. I will ask that if we can have our slides up, that is good because it's got a lot of really good information. So you don't just hear our voices and see our faces. We'll have some screen for you. Thank you so much. All right, so I had mentioned a couple of our panelists. So again, there they are. Amelia, I saw your wave earlier. Thank you for being here. Karen, Monica, and Erin. So we'll get started right now. And again, we have our chat, so feel free to post questions there and we'll make sure we get to them. So today's agenda is, we'll kick it off first with Amelia Hoffman, who will talk about academic success resources that are run out of her office along with her tutors. And then we'll go to our professor here, Karen Patsky, who will talk about the Writing Resource Center, our English for speakers of other languages, the Public Speaking Lab, and the Digital Story Lab. So we have a lot of really great resources for students at ESF as well as SU. So it's important that students know about them because I know that sometimes those don't get as well talked about. And then we'll kick it over to our 2 professional advisors, Erin and Monica, who will just touch on advising because we all think advising is so essential to the student experience, and navigating that relationship with your advisor, whether it's a professional advisor or a faculty, is really important. We'll talk a little bit about trends in the classroom that we're hearing from our students. And some of us have been doing some phone calls with Okies Outreach And it's been really helpful to hear the experiences our students had in the fall and what's on their minds as we get ready for the spring starting on February 8th. So we want to talk a little bit about that. And then we'll also talk about some SU resources through Recreation Services. That's a great outlet for some built-in self-care, and it's a service already provided by their SU activity fee. So we wanted to include that. And then we'll end with question and answers. For those again who can't stay for all of the Q&A at the end, feel free again to put your information in the chat and we'll reach out. We'll try and answer those in the spot. If not, we'll also share our emails along the way. Okay, next slide. And I just want to make sure we acknowledge our land. So as you know, where we are located, where ESF is located is on the ancestral lands of the Onondaga Nation, the center of the 6 nations of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, who we honor for our many contributions, including the original philosophy and practice of environmental stewardship. All right, Amelia, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. And thank you, Laura, for that introduction. And thank you everyone else who joined in on this Zoom chat tonight. So if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat bar, or you can feel free to unmute and ask. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to just cover some of our broad spectrum of resources that are available to all of our students. So I want to start off with maybe highlighting some of our direct academic support services through the Academic Success Center. So we do have virtual peer tutoring that is available to students. We focus primarily on first and second year courses. Those are available through esf.mywconline.com, which is a really cool platform that has scheduling enabled. So if students are kind of raring to go and want to sign up and register for an account, they can already do so. And that will be available starting on February 15th, but emails will be sent out to the campus. And we actually share that platform with some of our other resources, which I will also allow Karen to speak to a little bit later. But I also wanted to touch on some of the other services that we provide through our office. So a lot of students who are struggling, maybe they had trouble adjusting to online learning in the fall, or if they have other academic resources that they're really lacking, we do offer one-on-one academic coaching for students, which is a process where we customize a support plan and help students connect to their goals and develop a good path forward in order to reach the academic demands of their classes. So that could involve time management, organization, practicing study skills, test-taking workshops, or connecting them with outside resources, but really having a home base where they can talk about what they're experiencing and what their challenges are. We also host a series of academic skill building workshops. So those are also going to be hosted via Zoom this semester and recorded and shared. So if a student happens to miss the time that it's available live, they can always tune in and get that information in another format. Again, the Writing Resource Center is a really great place for students to work on things like lab reports, or if they have any other kinds of writing assignments. Students find that those services are incredibly helpful. I will allow Karen to speak more on that later. We also wanted to highlight the public speaking lab is available this semester. They can make appointments through Appointee. We also have the English Speakers of Other Languages Center as well. And both the Writing Resource Center and ESOL share the same platform as the Academic Success Center. For students who are looking for specific math support, we do have the ESF Math Center, which provides individual tutoring and also group tutoring, sometimes even with a professional staff member through Blackboard. So students can sign up through Blackboard in organizations. So if you do have questions about that, I can easily send you the information, but we can't underscore enough the resources available to students in the classroom itself. The faculty and TA office hours are one of the best places for your student to get the most updated information about what's going on and what they need in order to reach the academic demands of the class. It's a great place to ask questions, get to know their faculty. So if your student calls you and says, hey, I'm really struggling in this class, encourage them to talk directly with their faculty member or go to office hours. Next slide. Some of you on the call I've already had conversations with, but I wanted to also share some of the other resources outside of ESF. Two of the primary resources are the SU Center for Disability Resources, as well as the SU Physics Clinic. Those are two resources that there's information available online. So if you do have any questions about that, we can also share that. And some other services that are closely related to academic success are ESF Counseling Services, ESF Academic Integrity, and ESF Student Support Services. We also have some research assistants through the ESF librarians, and they are also available this semester as well. So if your student is studying on campus or remotely, they can access all of those services. Additionally, the AXS test files are available to students. AXS is one of our student organizations, and they have old exams from professors that they can share for practice tests or other kinds of resources that students can utilize to study. And this upcoming semester, we're trying something new to engage students. We have what's called a Gather Town, which is a completely virtual space where students can study together. So it's an integrated, both audio and video format. So it's pretty cool, but we'll be sharing that with students this upcoming semester. So I wanted to share a few tips on how students can really try to make the most of an online learning experience. Sometimes students might be having some difficulty adjusting to either working in a different location or just trying to adjust to the format. But there's a few tips that I wanted to make sure that we shared with all of you to try and reinforce with your student. The first thing is to actively participate in lecture as much as possible. So if that's a synchronous online lecture, participating either by unmuting, turning on your camera if you feel comfortable doing that, adding some information or asking questions in the chat are always really good ways to stay updated and connected to what's being presented. I know some students might feel like, oh, well, it's an online lecture. I can just turn off my camera and lay in bed and just be really passive. But unfortunately, that's just not the best way to learn the information. And then they end up having to rewatch the lecture later. So it's always best if you can try to engage kind of in the moment with some of those synchronous lectures. The other tip that I wanted to provide is if a student has maybe an asynchronous lecture, some students maybe are waiting till the last minute to engage with the lecture content, but I encourage people to set aside a set time, just as if it was an online synchronous lecture, and tune in, check out the content, and really stick with that schedule as much as they can. This will help them stay up to date with all of the course content and not get into a slippery slope of falling behind and having to make up for lost time, which can often cause a lot of stress. Some students come to college really needing to work on their time management skills as well. So this is a great opportunity to maybe utilize some different kinds of time management tools. Also prioritizing what needs to be done first. There might be a lot of information, a lot of Zoom links that they're trying to keep organized. So in our new digital environment, I have been encouraging students to utilize an online calendar, whether that's connected to their email is usually the best bet, but there's a lot of really cool apps and tools that people can use. So definitely try a lot of different things and see kind of what sticks. Another topic that I would encourage you to have a conversation about is
distractions. So some students are distracted by their emails, some students are distracted by video games, but the biggest culprit is students being distracted by their phone. So if either during a lecture or whenever they're trying to study, if they can disconnect from electronics or those things that might be detracting from their ability to focus, just even becoming aware of what distracts you throughout your day is going to help you be more mindful and more connected to what it is that you're trying to do in the moment. Because when you're distracted, tasks take a lot longer, they feel a lot heavier. So if you can avoid distractions or at least recognize what they are, that's always good to become more aware of. Another part that's maybe a little bit more challenging for students, especially if they've had a lot of support in the past, or maybe have had teachers who've reminded them of assignments, is that students will have to stay pretty self-motivated during this time. And taking responsibility for their own learning is going to be a really important developmental task. So if students are having problems with motivation, that's also very normal during this time. But definitely don't hesitate to reach out and talk to somebody about that, because it can get really difficult really quickly if you're maybe suffering in silence in some way. Which leads me to my other point. During this time, during this global pandemic, where there's a lot that's potentially adding to our level of stress, it's important that students are paying attention to their own health and mental health. And that can be very difficult because stress is often seen as a very normal part of the college experience, but only to a point. Stress can sometimes be motivating, but if you kind of reach a level where it's becoming unhealthy, it can be incredibly demotivating. But talking about it and trying to be open, encourage your student to take some mental health breaks, get up from their computer for 10 minutes at a time, stretch, drink some water, go get a snack, just to decompress a little bit. Because when they return to their work or whatever they were doing, they'll maybe come back with a little bit more clarity and focus. It's also important that if your student is struggling, that they're asking for help. That can be one of the most challenging things. A lot of students come in feeling like, you know, I'm going to prove to everybody that I can do it. And independence and self-motivation is a really great trait, but it can also lead people to not asking for help when they need it. So even just having the courage to send an email to somebody at the college who you might know, to your professor, to your advisor, it's really important to do. It's also might be a little bit challenging in online learning to get to know either peers in your class or your professor. So try and get to know them. When you go to office hours, you're building a closer relationship with your faculty, and that's going to help you feel more connected and supported in the class. Try to also use technology to your advantage. There are so many cool things that are now available that weren't even available 6 months ago. I am learning new things every day. Students share really cool platforms with me all the time. And one of those resources was GatherTown. It was shared by a coworker, didn't even know it existed. So feel free to kind of explore our new digital world and try to find new ways to integrate this technology into your life, because it can actually really be very beneficial. That and also utilize your resources on campus. I know it might feel very challenging to kind of stay involved and connected, but for tutoring, for the Writing Resource Center, you're going to be meeting with other students who've had this ESF experience. And there is a real integrative mentoring relationship that exists between students in that peer model. So students find it really beneficial to talk and connect with other students. And that is sometimes how people really learn best, is in community. So definitely utilize everything that's available to you. There's so much so many resources for support. And definitely, if you're a family member, you're worried about your student, also don't be afraid to reach out to any of us. I touched a little bit on this. So one of the benefits is that tutoring is free for students. And they also cover a lot of challenging courses that students encounter in the first 2 years. So utilize that. Our tutoring services are available at a variety of different time slots, depending on the course, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. And as I mentioned before, tutoring will start on February 15th. And here are also a list of the upcoming academic skill building workshops. So students who are hoping to kind of catch that content and get into the Zoom rooms can register on the ESF website. There'll also be links that are sent through Oki's Ops, as well as to the regular student listserv. So there's a variety of different topics. If students want to sign up and get involved with academic coaching, they can also email me directly, and I'll be sure to add my email in the link down below. And I'm going to pass the baton over to the wonderful Karen Patzke, who will talk about our Writing Resource Center.
Nice. I'm glad to see everybody online, and I'm really happy to be invited to this. So I'm going to go over 4 resources that are housed within the Writing, Rhetoric, and Communications program, which is part of General Education, or the General Education Division at ESF. And I think, as Laura mentioned earlier, I'm a professor as well in environmental studies and in the writing program. So I'm happy to, if you have questions about what does the professors do, I'm happy to field those questions too. No problem at all. So the 4 services, Amelia mentioned them, are the Writing Resource Center, the English for Speakers of Other Languages Center, the Public Speaking Lab, and the Digital Storytelling Studio. And what I'm going to do in successive slides is describe each individually and provide some links and some basic information about what they do. But you can find all of this information if you were to just do a search for ESF WRC. It would send you to the Writing, Rhetoric, and Communications program, which then links to all the other services. And all of the services open the second week of courses and go into the end of the semester. So they're all available throughout the semester to you. And each service has its own means of making appointments. So it's important to kind of understand that if you want to work with the Writing Center or you want to work in the Digital Storytelling Studio, you have to go to each of those services independently. So Erin, if you could go to the next slide. Oh, you already did, sorry. Sorry. So the Writing Resource Center is also called the WRC, and I'm just going to tell you that it's a little bit confusing because we have the Writing, Rhetoric, and Communications program, and then we have the Writing Resource Center. But either way, you're going to get the same information. You might just have to click through a couple screens. So at the WRC, what we do is we do peer-to-peer online tutoring. So we have tutors who have gone through the basic writing classes at ESF, who've gone through an internship program, and who are now tutoring peers. And so they've been successful in courses, and they have a good understanding of writing. And then they're all supervised by me. So I'm often getting text messages just to make sure that citation formats are correct and things like this. So the tutors that we have across all of the services are super knowledgeable. And at the Writing Center, we don't just focus on that final paper that you might have or that final lab report. we can really help you through a lot of different stages of writing. So we like to think of writing as a process. You have the assignment. You might need to talk through the assignment to make sure that you understand it. You might need to brainstorm some ideas, work on your organization, and then maybe revise an early draft. And all of those things are processes of writing that Writing Center tutors can help with. You can also make multiple appointments. Your students can make multiple appointments throughout the semester, so it's not like one and done. We really encourage students to come back either for one assignment or multiple assignments. And what we found last semester is that students make multiple appointments throughout the semester to start to be accountable and have some kind of self-imposed deadline for their own writing. And we 100% support that. That's totally fine. As I think Laura mentioned earlier, or maybe it was Amelia, we work on lab reports, we work on essays and memos, research papers, and then we also help with professional work. So if your student is applying for an internship and needs to write a cover letter, those are things that we can help with as well. And then these two links at the bottom are how to schedule an appointment in our general website. And if you go to our general website, you'll actually see pictures of all the tutors along with the descriptions of what their expertise is or what their experience is. So we have graduate tutors and we have undergraduate tutors. So you can get an idea of who to make an appointment with. And just like what Amelia said earlier, we share the platform so you can make appointments going to that esf.mywconline.com. Can you go to the next slide, Erin? So the English for Speakers of Other Languages Center, for some reason I couldn't quite process that. Is a partner program for the Writing Resource Center, and I work very closely with the director there. So we often have students who are going back and forth between those centers to work on assignments and also work on conversational development. So the ESOL Center focuses also on one-to-one and conversation group tutoring, but their tutors, they use a mix of professional tutors, faculty members, graduate students, and internship partners. So those tutors are really focused on developing conversation skills as well as working on grammar and revision and cultural knowledge too, which I think is so cool because it's a way that we get to exchange our understanding of how academics operate in different places. It's a really excellent resource to have. And if your student has questions about how to use the center, or maybe they have goals that aren't quite listed on the center's page, you can always make an appointment with Dr. Nina Jakaya to tailor sessions and to tailor tutoring to fit your own goals. And their websites are accessed through the WRC webpage as well. With all of our departmental or all of our service web pages, we all have a link on the right-hand side to the other services. So even if you get a little bit misdirected, you can always see other services on the right-hand side of our pages. The Public Speaking Lab, I think this is maybe one of the more obvious names here. It's for when you are doing some kind of presentation or public speaking aspect of your work. And it doesn't necessarily have to be associated with coursework. If you're going to a conference or if you're trying to prepare for an interview, or if you have a presentation to a large group of people that may not be a classroom, you can make an appointment to work with peer-to-peer tutors here as well. And just like the Writing Center, these are students who've gone through public speaking courses at ESF and an internship as well. And what's really interesting now is as we've transitioned to online, they've really developed a whole suite of tutoring to help students present online. And many of you are going to be asked to do this. So working with a tutor in the Public Speaking Lab can be a really excellent kind of first try. You'll get really great feedback on your slides, your presentation style, and tutors can help you refine that for a class presentation or really anything else. And importantly, on the Public Speaking Labs webpage, they have a series of videos for if you're nervous speaking in front of people, if you're not sure how to get started, or you want to understand like what are the best design styles for slides and things like that. They have these great about 10-minute workshop style videos that are available on their website. And then before I go, the last one I want to tell you about is something called the Digital Storytelling Studio. And this is new. It's been here for about 3 or 4 years. And it's support for technical and storytelling consultation for digital projects. Well, what does that mean? All of what we're doing right now is a digital project. But you might not, and definitely I don't know, all of the platforms and resources that are available. And so the Digital Storytelling Studio is there to help field those technical questions and also give students a better understanding of what's possible. So they can rent equipment, audio equipment, visual equipment, and they can also use editing software that's available through the center to make podcasts, short videos, photograph, montages, all kinds of different things. If you wanted to put together a more sophisticated website, this would be a great resource for you. Additionally, I just want to add before I go is that all of these services help to feed into ESF's online literary journal, which is called Unearthed. The new journal was just released this past month, and there's going to be a call halfway through the semester for a spring issue. And it's one way that we get to highlight all of the diverse work that we do at ESF that might not fit into a classroom. So this is one place where you could check things out. And I just want to leave y'all with some quotes from students this past semester who've been able to engage with the services that we've offered and had positive experiences, which is predominantly everybody who uses the services. I haven't had a bad review yet, but it can be used, all of these services can be used in a lot of different ways. And I do strongly recommend that y'all use that students kind of try out services and see which ones fit where they are within your academic development. Because I always like to say, I'm a horrible writer. It takes me a really long time to get motivated. I'm deadline driven, which means it's like 2 weeks and I'm like, oh, I gotta work now. But you know, practicing writing, seeing it as a process really helps me to get to that moment where I can say it's done. But it takes me a long time to get there because I have all these intermediate stages that I'm working through. And most of us have to figure out what kind of writer they are, what kind of public speaker you are, what kind of digital cultural producer you are. It requires like a little bit of trying, you know, and being a little bit uncomfortable those first couple of times, and then really falling into what fits for you. I'm happy to answer any questions y'all may have. And I'll also kind of read through the chat to see if there are any questions too. Oh, okay. So someone's asking if students are strong in English writing skills, what are the rules or allowances for testing out of basic courses? And so I would say, so it's not faculty members or the services who really make those decisions. So I actually don't know the answer to that question, but I think maybe Erin has the answer to that question.
Excuse me. Yeah, so with that question, typically what we need for a student to be exempted from a class is to have already taken college credit for a class. We don't let folks test out of any of our required coursework. So if your student has taken a college level course, either in high school through an AP or IB or a community college, or from a transfer institution, those would be acceptable, but unfortunately you can't test out of our writing courses. So that's the short answer to that question.
I would add to that that if your student is a strong writer, a strong public speaker, or has great prowess in digital technologies, you can apply to be a tutor, which could be a really great opportunity for most students. Amelia, I think, is laughing. She has a lot of tutors that work for her as well. So we're always looking for people who are interested and developing that personal relationship with others. How do you have a professional persona for tutoring? And if you already have a strong skill set, you're kind of one step there already. I see a question about office hours. Will faculty provide more office hours? And I would say that all faculty members are required to have office hours. And most faculty members say if you can't meet during that specific time, if you propose several alternatives when you're free, you can have a meeting with the professor. So even though you might not be available during those office hours, propose alternative times for you to meet with the professor, and they will meet with you. That is, as a professor, I miss the student interaction. I miss those deep dive conversations about content, trying to have a more robust conversation about what's going on in the classroom. Those happen during office hours. So I know that the hours that I list are pretty limited, but I always have these alternative forms of meeting as well.
I think that there's a lot of great chat. I really appreciate it. We'll try and summarize those questions at the end and turn it over to two of our advising staff here. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Monica Blaisdell, and I'm one of the 2 professional advisors on campus. So as a professional advisor, I'm going to go over a few of our helpful academic advising tips that are particularly useful as we start to gear up for the spring semester. So the most popular tip that I can offer is just to reach out to your advisor if you ever have any questions or concerns. Every student at ESF has an advisor, and I like to think of advising as being that central place where students can go if they have inquiries, academic or non-academic, and we can try to help you match and guide you toward the proper resources. The second important advising tip is to not struggle in silence. As Amelia spoke about a little bit earlier in the presentation, we can have a tendency to not want to ask for help, but an advisor is really there to help guide you toward the right resources for you. Like I said earlier, whether that's academic or not academic, we are here to help you through your challenges and connect you to the proper services. One other important tip is to pay attention to academic deadlines, especially now when we're living in a virtual world and deadlines sometimes change. It's more important than ever just to be cognizant of that and reach out to your advisor if you have questions. And also on the registrar's website, the academic calendar is posted. And so I always advise my students to keep that as one of their starred tabs on their web pages so that they can always just be cognizant of when our important deadlines are and reach out to their advisor if they need to meet any of those deadlines. Also, advising doesn't only happen during registration. Students are required to meet with their advisor once a semester during advising and registration time. But I always find that some of the more fruitful relationships with advisees are those that are continuous, where we meet frequently or at least to touch base periodically throughout the semester and build on previous conversations, build rapport. I tend to think that leads to some of the more tailored academic plans with students, and it can help us as advisors guide you more specifically toward resources that meet your specific academic goals. And finally, us as advisors are very much here to help you and to provide you with resources, to give you your options and guide you toward making the right decisions. But it is also especially productive in advising meetings for students to come to the table ready to engage, to be thoughtful about their academic plan, and to come prepared with resources. So I always, before my meetings with students, just recommend they come with paperwork, questions, and ready to have really great conversation. And so that was my short and sweet pitch. And I'm going to pass the baton to Erin, our other professional advisor.
Thanks, Monica. So as Monica mentioned, advisors really serve as a central point for students. If you don't know where to go, if you don't know what resources you may need, or you don't know what resources exist, go to your advisor. They are definitely the touch point for folks if you don't know where to go. So as Monica also mentioned, and I always lose my voice as I start to talk on Zoom. You can connect with your advisor for things like transfer credit. That's an administrative service through the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. We need transcripts to be able to transfer those credits. Your advisor can connect you with financial aid if you have issues with financial aid, and Bursar's office, any of those administrative functions. That's something they can do. The traditional things that you would think of, academic services, we can connect you with folks like Amelia. We can connect you with the Center for Disability Resources over at SU, Writing Resource Lab. All the services that we've been talking about tonight are things that your advisor can help remind you of where to go. You forget that you can get help with the Writing Resource Lab Center, then go to your advisor and say, I don't remember where that information lived. Can you show me? That's what they're there for. And there are other things in the academic services world, things like the Office of International Education. When we can hopefully study abroad again, that'll be really great. So study abroad is there. You work with your academic advisor to plan those things and those wonderful experiences that you can take advantage of in college. And along with that, that's a resource for our international students as well. And then other things like support services, career services is a wonderful resource on our campus. They can help connect students with internships and job opportunities. They have career fairs every semester. There are a lot of really great ways to connect with those folks. And then there are other things that come up in your life. If you need counseling services, those are folks that we have available on our campus as well. And if you go to your advisor and are going through something, they may recommend you go to them. And that's also another connection you can make with student support services through the Office of the Dean of Student Affairs. So all of these places that you may need to go and you don't know yet, go to your advisor and they can help point you in the right direction. And another little thing that we wanted to talk about is just what the trends we're seeing in classroom environments in the online setting. So our first point here, every class environment will be their own unique ecosystem. And as we know, you may sometimes have to adapt to different environments, right? So as things evolve and change, you may need to adapt your own skills and ways to engage in those environments. So just be adaptable as much as you can. One professor may do online synchronous in one way and your other professor may do it a little bit differently, and just be prepared to jump into different environments and roll with those things. And if you need some help with those different skills of time management, please again, connect with Amelia and all of the work that their group is doing. Something that Karen Patsky actually recommended, and it's really valuable, is to, once your Blackboard online class is available to you, go through all of the weeks and modules and assignments and just see what's coming. Check through all the content that's available and just keep an eye out for the updates that go through the Blackboard. It's really helpful to, just go through and see what topics are going to be covered, what readings, when assignments are due. So if you do that legwork ahead of time, that's really helpful for you in the long run. This is, again, a little bit different in an online world, but interacting with your peers within a classroom environment is really helpful. And with the GatherTown app that Amelia mentioned earlier, that's a really cool way to kind of make your own study group if that's something that you want to do, a drop-in and have a study group with your cohort in your bio class or something. That's a really valuable opportunity that we've never had before. So these are challenges, but they have unique resolutions too. So engage with those folks as you can. Again, we can't stress enough not to hesitate to ask questions and reach out to these resources that we're sharing with you. If you don't know where to go, again, you can go with advisors, you can find your faculty, your TA, GA, whoever you can connect with on campus. Ask your questions, get them answered. Don't stay silent, suffering, as we've said before. Utilizing office hours is really important. Again, something that we've stressed multiple times here, just understanding what your assignments are and what the expectations are. Ask those questions, get to know your faculty. They're here to help and they want to help. So we all know that this is really tough and we want you to succeed. So as much as you can, please reach out to the folks here and any of the people in your academic life. Okay. This one's not assigned to anybody.
We
I'm
just,
happy. Oh,
go ahead.
I'm happy to add, I think I put most of the things here. These are some other resources that you can check out. Our library, it's called Moon Library, has actual physical workspaces for students. So if you needed a quiet space, you could go actually to Moon Library and work. And they also have computer cubicles. So if for some reason your laptop failed and you needed to log in to your synchronous class, you could go to Moon Library. But their web pages have a ton of information as well. So they have a series of research guides. And then they also have a tool called Chat with the Librarian. So from like I think it's 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., you can chat with a librarian to help find resources. Many of your textbooks are going to be available online, or many of the course materials will be available online, and the librarian can help you navigate some of these technical tools as well. And then a little bit after, I think Laura is going to give us more information about the Barnes Center at the Arch, which is the health and wellness center at SU that you all have access to. Another tool, another place that you have access to is SU's library as well, which is the Bird Library. There's several, there's Carnegie as well. There's a couple different libraries, but I think Bird Library is the ones that is open this semester for you to walk in. The other libraries, you can request materials and they'll all be taken to Bird Library. And then this is my favorite thing to say, get a library card. So all of you are ESF students. You have in some form, some kind of ID, whether it's a real physical plastic card that says that you're an ESF student or just that imaginary card that you got in an email somewhere. You can use that to get a library card at the Onondaga Public Libraries. And there you can access videos, you can access books, you can access all kinds of actual course material through the library for free. So all of my books and my courses this semester are going to be available through Onondaga Library. So it's just kind of one other tool that you can use to access free resources that are available to you just being an ESF student. And you might not technically be in Onondaga County, but you're enrolled here, so you're considered part of the county.
All right, I'm just going to quickly go over the wonderful resources as we talk about just having self-care plans, and we'll talk a little bit about it next week too, but I wanted to make sure because they do a lot and they've added more as the Barnes Center came online as the pandemic started. So here's some of what they have. I want to point out that they have esports, a really great room in the Barnes Center. Not that we want students on even more electronics, but it is a great outlet and, you know, it is a popular one too. They have really great outdoor education and trips, so from skiing to snow tubing to snowshoeing. They've got it all for winter. They do a lot in the fall as well. So horseback riding, I mean, really cool things that is part of their student fee, and we don't necessarily replicate them. And given that our students pay that fee, we really want to push those. They also have a rock wall, and they, club sports are, sport clubs rather, are a great outlet for students who maybe don't want to join necessarily a team, but just want to do it more recreationally. There's also our ice skating pavilion, which is on South Campus, and there's shuttles that run there. So there's really cool things. And there's actually a few more slides if you want to go to the next one. So here's a little bit about the Barnes Center at the Arch. So again, it's brand new. They do, like you see here, have a climbing wall that I think in particular ESF students really are quite fond of. And I've heard a lot of our students are using them, and a whole host of other things, and fitness programs. So, and faculty, yes, that's correct. They also have group fitness that are online. I believe right now you do have to opt in. So that is a little bit different than showing up, but certainly check out their website. And it's Be Well, or the wellness portal. So students can log in with their SU credentials to get more information there. And then just a couple more slides. Oh yeah, and then an indoor walking track is pretty cool, which they never had before. They have a whole aquatics pool and hot tub area that's really cool, state-of-the-art, accessible. Esports, again, a lot of different ways to do that. Intramural sports, and we'll go to the next slide too. And again, with the virtual environment and the pandemic, there's certainly a little more that has to be done and researched than just showing up. So I wanted to make sure that that was noted. And then again, a little bit more here. And I mentioned some of the outdoor trips that we do try and push out. Certainly they might happen before word gets out about it for ESF. So I'd always encourage them to go right to the wellness portal. I'll put that in the chat too. So then just to wrap up, I think we just have another slide here. We have 2 more sessions. So next week, it's going to be, again, just register in advance so we can secure the Zoom, but please do sign up if you can for the next 2 sessions. And we solicit your feedback. So if there's things that's in your mind or on your mind and you want to learn more about it or have us have a quick hour session, we're happy to do that. If you have that question, there's probably a whole host of other families who have that. And thank you for putting that link in there. Please share that with your students. And then just we'll end with some questions. I do see a few, and a few more have come in. I know that transfers have come up, so I'll touch on that second, but I think our first question was about, you know, the normal environment for fall with a new student coming in for fall. So thank you for tuning in, getting a head start on this. So in a non-pandemic scenario, what does engagement in a lecture class look like? Is it straight lecture notes? So does anyone want to tackle that question? I think that's a great one. Assuming things are back to what we used to have before too, certainly.
I'm happy to say a little bit about it. I do want to be clear that many faculty are being asked to think both of continuing online teaching in the fall, as well as what some person-to-person teaching might look like. So we aren't yet there where we're thinking exactly what the fall is going to look like. And most likely some faculty members will choose to continue doing online teaching. When it comes to the environment though, we have a very robust and diverse pedagogical modes of inquiry happening. And what that means is we have labs, we have lectures, we have small discussion groups, we have professional development classes where students are put into teams and then they're producing reports either for the community or for a specific problem set that needs to be addressed. And so across the board, as students go through different courses, they're going to be encountering a lot of different kinds of teaching styles. So sometimes it'll be a lecture, especially for those first really big courses, but most of the time it's going to be smaller classes where you're engaging both with fellow students to address problems, be it a lab or some kind of community issue, or you're going to be working together with a faculty member on some kind of research project. And that's what a lot of what we do in the writing program is independent research. So it's quite diverse, for better and for worse.
Thank you for that. Are there any other tips or advice for people who work specifically with those first year courses like chemistry, biology that are larger lectures on how to navigate that a little bit more?
I would also mention that workshops and recitations are often available for larger lecture classes, which are great opportunities to not only reiterate the lecture material, but also to ask questions and to really get kind of that one-on-one attention that you might need. Usually that's facilitated by TAs, or sometimes even the faculty member runs those sections. So that would be another good opportunity, especially if it's a first year class. Maybe you're a little bit shy, don't want to ask questions in front of other people. I would also encourage students who maybe have trouble either paying attention or taking notes to meet with somebody to talk about what they're experiencing in the classroom, to see if maybe they would require some assistance with note taking or learning different academic skills, or might require a meeting with somebody at the Center for Disability Resources, especially if your student had any kind of accommodations in high school that maybe they don't want to use quite yet, but are thinking about using them. Also, we do have someone in the Dean's Office for Student Affairs. Her name is Mary Triano. She's our primary liaison between the Center for Disability Resources and ESF. So Mary Triano is fantastic and is kind of here to help you connect with some of those different kinds of resources as well.
Great, thank you. I saw another question, and if we can just go over any credits that maybe are owed, can an advisor perhaps go over, Monica or Erin, if you're feeling like you maybe should have credit for a course that you already took, like the writing example. Is there any advice you would give there too?
So I would recommend that folks share an unofficial transcript if they have it with their academic advisor. Sometimes we don't get, especially for new transfer students, we don't get to see their transcripts until a couple weeks into the semester because admissions has that information. So generally, we aren't able to do that when we're actually making schedules. So if we have an issue where a student is signed up for a class they already are getting credit for, that creates a problem. So if the student has an unofficial transcript available that they can walk through with their advisor, that's the best choice. And I also see a question about transfer student sign up. If your student is a new transfer, they are pre-registered for classes. So the registrar's office, in conjunction with curriculum coordinators in every department or division, do review transfer credit or transfer student schedules. So your student may not be fully enrolled depending on what they're bringing in, but they will have a class schedule already. They should be able to see that in MySlice, the SU registration system that we use. They should be able to see that already.
And one point I'll just add about transferring courses in is that if there's a course that you think you might be earning or should be earning credit for and you're not seeing it, even after that couple of weeks goes by, students can work with their advisor to fill out what's called a transfer credit petition. And I usually have students bring their course description or a syllabus from whatever course they took in high school or at a previous institution. And then sometimes I'll follow up with the professor of the course that they're looking to transfer in as being equivalent, just to see if the content matches up. So if it is a splitting hairs scenario with the writing course being environmentally focused or not, I would reach out to the professor of that course and see if it's equivalent.
Great, thank you so much. I do want to point out a couple of things that have happened in the chat. A quick one is parent and family emails. We have a link that Dean Lombard posted. It's right in the chat. So if you wanted to add in and stay in touch with us, we always rely on it. And we normally host a family weekend that's in person. And it's a host of kind of resource information sessions, as well as really fun traditions like tie-dyeing and having a taste of Central New York food and snacks, and tours with our world famous dendrologist, world renowned dendrologist Don Leopold. But because we can't do a lot of that, we've been doing these sessions. And there's also a great SUNY ESF parent page that's run by parents. And I think that, you know, there's a lot of great discussion that happens, and we try and monitor to help correct or inform families if there's confusion. We don't always get to it as quickly as we'd like, but certainly that is an outlet, especially for, I think, families to get to know each other. And I see a lot of your names sounding familiar from that. So I'd say that that's really good places to start for families, especially if you're new. There was a question about Blackboard and when that will be updated for the spring courses. I don't know that information. I'm wondering if anyone does know that answer. And then there's a research question too.
I can't see all of the questions. I'm sorry. So I'm not sure if there's a question that I should answer or not.
Was that the Blackboard question, did you say, Laura? Okay, so it depends on the faculty when the Blackboard course will be loaded. Some folks won't do it until the day the class actually starts. Some will do it, you know, the first day of class. Some will do it a week before class. So I just keep checking for that. That's, you know, faculty are adapting to our new timeline still. So I think that that has impacted the availability of resources.
One thing to note as well, if you can find a version of the syllabus that's also posted on Blackboard, that's going to be probably the most important document to inform you about what resources are available, what is the timeline for assignments. But even knowing that some of that is going to be flexible and changeable throughout the semester, depending on what's going on in the course, it's important to kind of keep up to date with the most current copy of the syllabus in case if there are any adjustments as well.
I do see the research question now. Sorry, I'm sorry. The question, for those of y'all who didn't see it like me, is what kind of insight or advice to give for students who want to work with professors. And the best advice is have a meeting with the professor, contact the professor directly, and ask them what they're interested in doing, what research they have on the ground right now, and what might be possible in the future. If they need to take classes with the professor, then to get on a research project. But that first step is to really reach out to the professor that you're interested in working with. And additionally, if that professor doesn't have opportunities for you, you can always ask the professor to recommend somebody else. So for example, I get students asking me all the time to work on research, but I actually don't do research. So I'm always directing students to other professors. And that's totally, that's kind of the collegial atmosphere that we have. We want students to be doing research. So.
Great, thank you. I just posted this too in the chat, but if I missed your question, our panelists, if you see a question we haven't asked out loud or re-mentioned, please unmute and say that. And I do see some chat just so people know about modalities for fall 2021 and possibly maybe someone meant spring 2022. And I know that our dean did post this, but the provost is already soliciting that. So that is to come for sure. And I appreciate what Dr. Patsky was mentioning about, you know, the colloquium that they went to learn about how we use what we've learned from this experience to figure out what courses could have a blend model, or, you know, not just go back to the way we have been, but evolve our work and our teaching. So I really appreciate that. I want to be cognizant of time as well. I know everyone does have other items to get to tonight. So if you have no more questions, I'll give it like 2 more minutes. I ask that our panelists could just put in their name and email one more time if there's any specific questions. But as you're doing that, I'm going to just ask for one quick tip for our panelists to share on one most important, valuable academic resource or service or technique. I'll be very broad, but just your biggest takeaway from our fall, since we were all here in the fall and even in the spring of 2020 when this started. Amelia, since you started and you were our kickoff, maybe you could give your final 2 cents here.
Thanks for putting me on the spot. I would say that some level of struggling during your first semester at any new institution and navigating that is going to be a challenge. It's going to require you to stretch and grow in ways that maybe you're not used to. But I would say, your support resources are here. There's a network of people who just want to see you thrive and be as successful as possible. So just remember, even if you are having a tough time, that we're here to catch you if you start falling.
Amelia, I love what you said. And I would just add to that, your professors want you to succeed. So don't be afraid to make an appointment with them for the office hours or to propose another time to meet, because we all really want our students to succeed. That's why we're here. We love teaching. We love that engagement. So don't be afraid to make an appointment with a professor, even if it's just to say, hi, I like that. It's totally fine.
Erin and Monica, and I'll give my parting words and we'll be done.
Sure. To bounce off of what Karen mentioned, I think engagement more generally is super important, whether it's with faculty or with your fellow students or the amazing staff on campus. There are so many people here to support you, and there are new ways to engage now that hopefully students can take advantage of in the spring. So get creative and figure out how to work with each other.
I won't reiterate any of the wonderful comments that my coworkers here have made, but the one thing I've heard the most from students is that it's been hard to feel like you're in class when you're at home. And so as much as you can, create a workspace for yourself to feel engaged, to feel connected, get dressed. Don't, go to class in your pajamas so you feel like you're really in class. I think having that structure is really important to feeling more like you're in class when you're in an online environment.
Oops, sorry, my copy and paste didn't go so well, but I wanted to just say that through our Oki outreach and in the time many of us have been at ESF, we are really here to help, and we understand that ESF is a little bit more unique, that we have really an ESF system to learn in the SU system, but there are really great resources from what we've shared with the recreation services to the student activities we do and they do to our Center for Disability Resources. So really just, it's okay, even if you feel like we've said it 100 times, it's really okay. It is a little bit confusing before you get kind of into the swing of things, especially for our transfers who maybe have been there, but you're learning 2 different systems. So I think that that's a big point. And I did forget to ask, what if our Dean of Student Affairs wanted to just give a quick advice or tips or anything too, and then we'll close it.
Thanks, Laura. And thank you everyone for tuning in. We're happy to see all of you. It's nice to see some faces with names that we've interacted with. I would add a little bit to what people have said, but we are definitely interested in helping you and partnering with you to help your students to be successful. So don't hesitate to reach out. Sometimes in an environment like this, you don't want to ask a question that's specific. Any of us would be happy to interact with you or your students one-on-one. If we can be helpful, please don't hesitate to reach out.
All right, well, I appreciate everyone being here. And again, next week we'll talk about mental health. And I know that that was already an article on the ESF parent Facebook page. So I think that it'll be a nice and timely session. Do encourage your students to watch these sessions too. Again, I'll post the links tomorrow. And they're very much welcome to attend behind your shoulder or with your muted camera, totally fine. Because really at the end of the day, we want students to hear this information just as much as you want to hear this information. So I hope everyone has a great night, and we hope to see you next week, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, thank you very much. And thank you again to our panelists.